Hi, this is Keto343, and in this video I'm going to go over how to improve your typing speed and the Dvorak keyboard layout. Okay, so first let's talk about how to improve your typing speed. So here's what I recommend doing. First, you want to go to keybr.com. So let's go to that. Keybr.com. It'll look like this. And before you start typing, you should click on Sign In at the top here, and you should sign in, say like with your email here. All right. You can also sign in with Google. You can also sign in with Facebook. And then if for some reason the email that you have isn't one that they can use for some reason, you can also use like this third one. I usually use the first one. I find that pretty good. I know some people would probably prefer using Facebook, but I'm not one of those people. So let me go ahead and log in off screen here real quick. Alright, so literally you just click on sign in with email. A thing will pop up. You're going to log in. So what it'll look like once you're logged in is it'll look like this. And what happens is that now when you type, it'll keep the statistics of how you're typing. Okay, and yeah, so that's so what is KeyBR? It's sort of like a typing game, but it keeps the statistics for you, and it's pretty easy to use, and it's all online. I actually like the fact that it's online because like I used to use some typing programs before that weren't online, and what would happen is like it'll keep your statistics. But say if I wanted to type like somewhere else, or if I found that I had some time somewhere, and I wanted to practice typing, I couldn't really do it, right? Because like I would type somewhere else, but like none of my data is saved in a sense. But KeyBR is nice is because it's online thing. So what happens is that all your data is saved online, right? So you can go to essentially any computer and practice your typing essentially whenever you want, and it'll have all your data saved for you just like that. So that's why I like KeyBR so much. So a couple things that you can edit, of course, is that here's the theme. So there's like some circles up here which changes the size. So if I click on these, you can see how the size changes. Obviously, these are different depending on the computer you have, right? So, or like the screen resolution you have. I find that the second to the right works for me, but of course it depends on you. And the two squares over here are the themes. So if I click on the dark theme, it looks like this. Click the light theme, it looks like this. I actually like the dark theme a lot, but I see the light theme better. But you know, like whatever you want. And so that's just kind of how to set up KeyBR. And then so now you can go ahead and just start typing like right away. I might mess this up because of course I'm on stream, so I would mess this up. But whoops. So you know, like you'll just type and then it'll say the statistics for you. So it actually says this statistics like right away after you just finish a line. Like usually I know that like a lot of programs you have to like write a lot before it gives you statistics, but in this case it just kind of gives it to you in, I guess, what is this, like 10-word chunks, which is pretty nice. So you can see on that last one I had like 4 errors and I had a speed of 47, which is like pretty terrible actually, but like I'm just warming up, whatever. And the score, I don't really know how they calculate the score, so I don't really worry about the score too much. Okay, these green things mean that you can, oh, or the letters that they're testing you on, and as you get better and better, they'll add more and more words. And this thing's blinking right now, which means it's pausing. To invoke a pause, you just click escape, and then when you want to come back, you just click escape again, right? So if I click escape, it blinks, and when I click escape, it comes back, and then I can continue typing. Let's see if there's anything else I want to talk about that. Okay, so if you want to edit some settings, so for instance, I found that sometimes they would like I'd be typing on this thing and I feel like I got the letters down pretty well and I want them to add a letter, but for some reason they're just not adding it. What you can do is click on settings, and what you want to do is adjust the extend alphabet size, and you can see that as I extend this bar, when I let go, hold on, there we go, letters get added on, right? If I move it all the way, like all the letters are added. And then if a little bit less, you know, you can adjust this slider until you get, say, an additional letter or 3 letters or whatever. You can also extend the lesson length. So say if you think it's too short and you want to type more, you can extend this guy to quite a fair amount. And then you can just, and of course you can adjust this to your liking. I find that until you probably until the software says like considers that you're good enough and it adds all the letters for you like automatically. I would kind of leave these on their default at the lowest, and then when you get all the letters down, you can try extending the lesson length, and then extending the alphabet size doesn't really matter too much, but extending the lesson length is usually left to the end. You can also enable a capital letters, so like every word starts off with a capital letter. I don't find that super useful actually, so I usually leave that off because I'm more concerned about having like knowing where the letters are with my fingers, and because typing capital letters you just hold down shift and it's like the same thing. So I usually don't worry about that one because I'm more concerned about actually learning where the letters are first. And then enabling the punctuation characters. I mean you could, but I feel like it interrupts my typing so much that my speed drops just like way too much. And I think it's just because punctuation you only use it maybe like 10% of like when you're typing compared to like letters. So I would much rather learn all the letters first, and then like because the punctuation only comes every once in a while, like at the end of a sentence or something. Um, yeah, so I actually like the default by itself, but in case you needed to know them, this is what it is. And let me see if I have anything else to talk about on here. Just give me a second. Okay. Yeah, okay, so let's say if I went ahead and typed some samples real quick. So here, I'll try to do better for you guys. I mean, I'm sure some of you are probably watching me type and be like, oh my god, he's terrible. But, you know, like, hopefully this is for the people who don't type as well, so that's who it's for. And I'm not saying I'm like a huge expert or something, but this is something I found that helped me out a lot. So yeah, so oops, my bad. And let's try one more. Oh, okay. This one's really bad. Sorry. Maybe let's try one more after this one. Never mind. Whoops. Jeez. Oh my goodness. I'm doing so badly right now. Look. I haven't practiced this in a while. Oh my goodness. So terrible. There we go. Okay, look. Wow, that was bad. But anyway, you get some letters in here, right? Like you get some samples done. Then you want to click on profile, and this shows you the profile for like how you did. So for instance, total time means actually like the total time you actually spent typing in this program. So not just like for the day, but like ever. As you can see, it's only like 2 minutes, or is this? I guess this is probably 2 hours, I think. Anyway, and then this is, I typed 15 samples. Must be 2 minutes. No way am I typing 15 samples in like 2 hours. That's absurd. But then my top speed. So I tried typing this like the day before, and I got like way higher. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, so today, you know, so top speed ever was 78 for now. Average speed of 54, and the average speed today was 54. That's kind of cool. And then if you go down, the typing achievements just means like whenever you increase typing speed or like increase your score, they'll have like a little medal here. I think it's only per day though, so each day like it gets erased, and then like you have to get more awards or achievements, I mean, and so on. As of today, like I haven't gotten any achievements, so that's why there's anything here. And now there's your learning progress overview chart. So what this is that they organize it by letter. And if you're doing really well on that letter, it's green. If you're doing pretty bad on that letter, it's red. And ideally, of course, since they add it like one letter at a time, they usually have this like kind of staggered thing going on. And if you had more and more letters, it'd be more and more staggered. And obviously, you should go from less green to more green, and hopefully, it'll be all green over here. I'll see if I have something like that. I'll show that later. But and then you can go down, and then you can actually click on the individual letters and see how your progress is over time, right? So if you have a lot of data, the smooth data comes on. But if you have a little bit of data, like it's obviously unchecked. Smooth data just means like it kind of averages these all out, so like it makes more sense. It's like not all over the place essentially. Smooths it out, does what it says. So yeah, you can go through here. You can see like, oh, I'm learning this letter, like, which means like how fast you type that letter. Like you're learning it around 3 words per minute per sample. And then they calculate that for words per minute per hour. You know. Yeah, hopefully you see that most of them go up, some of them go down, which means that you probably did it like really well, and then it goes down. It could have been a fluke or something. I don't know why I got so high all of a sudden it went down. Obviously, as more and more letters come up, though, like your brain, it might be a little bit harder for like your brain to know them really well off the top, so like it might drop a little bit, but it'll always go up in the end. I think that's what, at least that's what I found. And I actually erased my statistics, which is why it's like so little of them, but I actually had like a lot of statistics before. And then this is your typing score and speed chart. So purple is typing score, green is speed. Again, I have no idea what the heck score is all about, so I just look at the green one technically. As you can see, I started off pretty low, and then it's averaging out is like the trend line goes up. But as you can see, it kind of goes all over the place. But as I type more and more, you'll actually see it like again, it will go around this line, but it tends to keep going up. And then this is a histogram, which means how many did you type. This is the average typing speed for each key, right? You can see like, oh, I'm typing H really well or something, but for some reason F is really bad, right? Which is actually kind of like useful information, right? Like you can be like, oh, I should try to focus on F a little bit. So like when you're typing, you should, if you see an F, you should be like, all right, I have to try to get F's down, while you can like pay less attention if it's H's and I's, in my case, for instance. And then this is the same thing, but now this is like percentage wise, so this is like how many did you get correct compared to how many you got incorrect, right? So hit count versus miscount, and your hit to miss ratio is down here, so it's just the ratio of the two. And then the higher it is, the worse it is, in this case, for the purple. So for instance, like, oh, I'm doing really well for A, I'm doing really well for E, but like, man, L for some reason is like really bad. I seem to mess that one up a lot, which is actually something I noticed when I was typing today. I was like, oh man, for some reason my L's are like all wrong. But anyway. And then lastly, you have your frequency heat map, which just means like if it's more, it's kind of like this thing, just displayed on your keyboard. So the bigger the green circle is, it just means like the more, how many times you hit it correctly, and then the red means how many times you hit it incorrectly, and the more, like the bigger the red is, the worse it is. So as you can see, I seem to have problems with R, U, and L, for instance, okay? And then practicing calendar shows you like what dates have you been practicing on. As you can see, like apparently last time I practiced this was on the 3rd, the 16th, and like the 24th, which is pretty bad, but like, yeah, I'll tell you like what I recommend for this. Obviously, or maybe not so obviously, sorry, I should say, but I've been typing, well, a little bit less now that school started, which happened around like the 16th, which is why I haven't been typing so much. But I also have like a little bit less of a need to be typing so much as opposed to before, and I'll explain why for that in a second. But yeah, and then lastly, you can download the data. I don't really know why you would do that, but I guess you could. And then you can also reset your statistics, which is what I actually did when the new year started. Okay, so that's the statistics I guess page that has all your statistics, which is really nice. So if you type more, this gets more and more fleshed out. So for instance, like maybe this one's better. Yeah, so this is one where I typed a little bit more on Dvorak. This is I'll talk about this later, but this is what this one looks like. So you can see like my top speed's higher. I didn't practice Dvorak today, but then like here's what I was talking about with the staggered part. I should get more green over here. These are like sometimes when I had some issues, and so on. And then this is like, so now here's like smooth data is now a thing. If I unclick smooth data, like you can see it's all over the place. In this case, it's going down mainly because like when I cleared the statistics, it gave me all these easy letters first, which I type all the time. So like I blazed through the easy ones, and they started adding more and more letters. And when it became more and more realistic, I was like, my speech started dropping a little bit. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. But because it was like, it just happened to be that I started out typing like crazy fast just because they gave me super easy things to type. So. But yeah, so this hopefully gives you like a more idea of like what it'll look like. I just wanted to show that. I prepared this a little bit beforehand. So there you go. But then the US is like just for day and stuff. So let's see if I have anything else to talk about. So that's mostly it. So go ahead and use this, and you can practice your typing, and then over time you'll see that your typing will improve. Okay. I remember that when I started typing, I was probably started off at like what did I start off at? I think I started off with like 40 words per minute. It was like pretty bad. And then as I got better though, like my speed's been going up. But yeah, so here, let me just go over the tips that I was talking about, and then I'll talk about my improvements in speed. When I was like actually seriously training to improve my typing speed, I would practice like 20 to 30 minutes a day, or at least like every other day. And I found that I improved really quickly, because at first, of course, like you struggle a little bit, but then as you do it more and more often, you just get used to just typing essentially like regularly, which is why your speed goes up. And I found that to help a lot, just to type regularly. Now that school started, I'm actually doing a lot more like handwriting for my notes than typing, so like that explains why I haven't been typing so much. That's it. But yeah, so again, so as you can see, like I'm not exactly pressed for time to improve my typing speed, so then I just do it whenever, like at least once a week. So if you like looked at my, look at like when I've done it pretty much like, well, okay, fine. I seem to have missed a week, but about once a week. Okay. Let's see. If you find that you're messing up a lot, you should just take a break. So for instance, like if I was to start typing now, I think I would actually do better than before. Just a little bit, just because like now that I took a break, like I kind of like set back to normal, and then I can like go ahead and start typing, and then if wherever I mess up is like where I mess up. But I usually tend to type better like right away after I take a break, just because if I've been typing for a while and like I see that I've been typing like with a lot of errors, the errors kind of like weigh on my mind, and then I start doing more and more errors, right? But if I take a break, I can kind of sort of like reset my brain, and then I find that I do pretty well again, like right when I go back in. Okay. But of course, you don't want to take too long of a break. Probably like 30 seconds to a minute is good enough. If you like wait too long, then you just forgotten like everything essentially. So you want like enough to like reset yourself, but not to like just reset all the way to zero and kind of like forget all the work you've done. And then so if you find that you've been messing up, and then if you take a break it doesn't help, then you should just this sounds kind of harsh, but what I would recommend doing is just struggle through it, and just because it's only for 20 to 30 minutes, just keep typing, right? And if you're messing up a lot, just force yourself to go through it. And what happens though is that because if you type a lot, even though you mess up, you at least kind of in a sense gain experience, right? And when you go to sleep, your brain like kind of sorts through like your typing. Well, not necessarily your typing, but kind of sorts through the thing that happened through the day, and then it goes through like how much like what you've been typing, and it will actually sort of notice like where you've been messing up. And so after you like go to sleep, your brain will sort out like, oh, okay, like I seem to be messing up these letters a lot or something, but I like where's that letter go to? Oh, my, like that letter is typed with my left index finger in this movement or something. And then that way the next day you should hopefully feel that like that you'll improve at least a little bit just by sleeping, which I think is kind of cool. And you just keep typing, and that's what I recommend for that. And then the last one is that to play music when you type. So like obviously typing can get pretty tedious. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna like what am I typing for? It's just clacking away on my keyboard. But if you play some music, you know, it makes time fly by way faster, just because like you can just listen to music, and like you can like not necessarily pay attention to typing, and it's like when you're listening to music anyway, it's not like you're using your hands, so you'll be listening to music but then you just use your hands to be typing, which is totally fine. And then I even find that playing music actually can help your typing speed, just because if it's like a slow song, you'll like when you type, or at least I find that I naturally kind of go like with the beat of the music. So if it's a slow song, I actually slow down, which means I type more accurately, right? So which makes sense. Like the slower you go, the more accurate you should be typing. But then if the song's relatively fast, I'll try to follow the fast song, right? And that kind of tries to encourage me to type faster. Like whenever I got like a top speed, I always did it. Like it was always when I was typing to like a really fast song, just because like it just happened to be that I was typing to the fast beat, and I just happened to like not getting any errors or something, which ends up being like a really fast speed. Okay. So yeah, so it's just like if you could mix it up between slow and fast, you'll for slow songs you will be typing more accurately, and then for fast songs, you're gonna try to just type faster and get used to moving your fingers faster. Essentially, like just get used to typing fast, and then over time you'll find that those two will actually come together. So that way you're typing with less errors and faster. Okay, and plus it kind of gives you an excuse to just listen to music during the day, right? Just set some time, just set apart 20 to 30 minutes, and just be like, this is time that I'm just gonna listen to music, have some fun, and just type while I'm at it, right? And I actually found that I had a lot of fun when I was typing and playing music. So like as I was typing earlier, I'm not listening to any music right now or anything, so I'm gonna blame that for why I was doing so badly, right? And the fact that I'm a little bit out of practice. I'm a little bit rusty. But yeah, so if I followed those 4 tips above, I found that I improved my typing speed quite significantly. Like as I said, I started off around like a 40, 45. I got to around like 55 after 2 weeks, and I got to like above, well, like at least above 60, which is like a word a minute or a word a second, which is nice. I got to around 70 after like a month, right? And then my top speed was 88. I think from if I showed it before, I think my speed was whoops, wrong button. What was it? So 78, you can see here, top speed is 89. Like I beat it like one day. So like, hey, beat it by 1, but you know, like any little bit counts, right? 89, which is really cool. And what I'm pretty happy about, dropped since then because I do it only casually now. I still average above 60. Okay, this is apparently a little bit of a lie. I bet it probably is averaging around 60. It's just that like I haven't typed enough times for it to show that it was 60. It says it was like 55 or something. But if I type more, I'm sure the average will come up. So, like, well, here, what was it? Well, 64, right? So technically, I usually type with Dvorak, which is why my average typing speed is usually higher, and not so much US. I'll explain what those are later. But as you can see, at least for Dvorak, I am above 60 average, right? Yep, so what I actually did when I was trying to learn to type really fast is I just set a time for like 9 or 10, you know, whatever time works for you, and you just put on some music and just type away. And then when the time is up, you kind of feel good for yourself, right? Because like, hey, one, you got to listen to music, which is, as long as it's like fun music, I'm listening to the stuff I like, which is always nice. And then you also were like a little bit productive, right? Because like usually when I listen to music, I just listen to music. I don't really do anything else. And but now I was like being productive while listening to music, so I kind of feel good about it, right? So like I found like that combination of just feeling good, even though I was like mainly listening to music, but I kind of threw in some typing in, and I knew that kind of like kind of subconsciously improves me just a little bit by little bit. That motivated me to do it every day. But you know, you can find what works for you, of course. So yeah, so that's what I recommend for improving your typing speed. Use KeyBR so you can keep track of your statistics. You can look at them at the end of each day, kind of be like, oh, like how is my learning doing, or you know, like what kind of keys did I mess up a lot today? Like what does my histogram look like? And that just gives you like useful information that you can think about. And then when you sleep about it, like or sleep on it, your brain can subconsciously kind of like consider, like analyze it, information and put it away somewhere. So when you come back the next day, even though it feels like you didn't do anything, your subconscious actually sorted that information for you. So you'll find that you'll just get better and better as you do it. So yeah, so that's how that's what I recommend for improving your typing speed. And now the rest of it's all just kind of like bonus material, right? Like when it comes to improving your typing speed, what I mentioned already is what I recommend. I've done it, it worked for me, and I feel it worked pretty well. But now this is kind of more of like a specialty thing. This is kind of like I say, it's like for crazy awesome points, right? Because it's not for everyone, okay? But I found it to be useful. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Dvorak keyboard layout. So what is it? Why should you do it? I'll try to give like a quick overview of all the things. I kind of wrote like this huge article about like why Dvorak is so awesome, essentially. But so the keyboard layout that that essentially everyone in the world uses, except for the few people like me who like use Dvorak or some alternate keyboard layout, is the QWERTY keyboard layout, right? This is also known as like the US keyboard layout. There's like slight variants, but this is like mainly what the world uses. And it's if you were to look at it, well, here I'll just switch to it. It looks like this, right? It's called the QWERTY layout. Why? Because it has QWERTY on the top row. It's the QWERTY layout. And this layout is kind of like an archaic layout. The only reason why like everyone uses it is just because it happened to be the layout that people used when computers were coming out, like when they transitioned from typewriters to computers. But if you actually read about the history of this layout, originally the keyboard was laid out like A, B, C, D, like alphabetical order from top to bottom. But what would happen though is that people got so good at that, and they were typing so quickly that typewriters would jam, right? Because, well, yeah, I mean, if you can look up about typewriters. I'm not gonna explain why they jam, but they jam, okay? And that was the problem, right? Because like you want to type something quickly, but there's this constant issue with jamming. What do you do? And so this guy actually generated the QWERTY layout and made people use it. Why? It actually slowed down their typing, right? And so now typewriters don't jam anymore. But this sounds like a really terrible idea nowadays, right? Because like if this layout was designed to actually slow you down, like why would you use it compared to say like just the ABCD, right? And because now in the digital age, where there's no more typewriters anymore, it's all keyboards, there's no such thing as jamming, right? There's like that's not a thing anymore. So like why do we still use this? And the only reason we use it is again just because it's like a carryover from the past, and it's just everywhere, and that's why people use it. But it's actually from a typing standpoint, it's actually like really slow. It's actually like really terrible, right? So then what happened though is this guy actually came around. So I kind of wrote that about this here. And what happened was that this guy actually came around and was like, you know what? How can we improve typing? And he did a whole bunch of, I think there's some term for it, but it's like typing statistics or something, analysis stuff. And he developed what's known as the Dvorak keyboard layout, right? And here, let me just go through this thing. Oh yeah, so there's just a few key terms. So keyboard layout just means how the keys are arranged. So the QWERTY, like and like ASDF, like the reason like they go here and all this stuff. This layout is called a keyboard layout. Okay, that's just a definition. Another definition is the middle row is called the home row. The reason it's called that is because your fingers rest on the home row, right? So when you're typing, if you're touch typing, your fingers should rest on ASDF on the left hand. They should rest on JKL and semicolon on the right hand. Okay, that's called the middle row. It's also where you start on. Because so if you hear me mention home row, that's what I mean, middle row, home row. Okay. So the guy developed the Dvorak keyboard layout, and the Dvorak keyboard layout, sorry, it looks like this. So this thing has it all here, but it looks like this, okay? So it has like A, O, E, I, U here. It has like the punctuations here and all this stuff. And at first you might be like, well, what's so special about this guy, right? And hold on a second. Right, okay, so what are some things to know, right? Like I mentioned this in here, but I'll just show it here. Is that the main thing I think is important is that all the vowels, right? A, O, well, A, I, E, O, U, right? Obviously, they're arranged a little bit weird, but A, O, E, U, I are all on the home row, right? And they're all like controlled with the left hand. So the left hand would rest on like A, O, E, U in the Dvorak keyboard layout. And if you compare that to QWERTY, right? Like, where are the vowels? Right? They're like all on the top row for one thing, except for A. So it's A, and then it's like E, I, O, U. They're all up here. And at first I'm like, why the heck did you put them like off the home row, right? Because if you think about it, the vowels are like used the most often, and yet why do you put them off of when I say the home row? It's like it's the row that you type the fastest, right? Because your fingers don't have to move anywhere. They just push down the key, right? So by putting it like in the QWERTY layout, like they're all off the home row except for A. So like for the most commonly used letters, you have to move them off the home row. So for first of all, that's like really weird, right? So the fact that they put the vowels all in the home row, I thought was like a really smart idea, actually. Which is kind of, so yeah, so the Dvorak keyboard layout has that. They also have, like, besides these guys here, right? So besides all the letters and punctuation stuff, everything else is the same. So like at least all the numbers are the same, and like the exclamation marks and like the symbols are all the same. So that's obviously nice. So if you look at your keyboard, like you don't have to be like, oh yeah, for some reason 5 is over here and like the percentage sign is like on the 9 or something. No, right? They're exactly the same. Backspace is the same. Enter, Shift, Alt, Control, they're all the same. Shift is the same. Spacebar is the same. Okay, so none of that stuff changed. It's just the letters and the punctuation. The only one that kind of did change is only these two here. Like these guys changed a little bit. So I think the plus sign used to be here, and then there was what goes here? Oh yeah, and the dashes was there. So like the plus sign and dash used to be up here, and these guys used to be here, but now it's kind of they switched, and then this guy just kind of showed up here. But besides that, pretty much everything is the same. Plus these are all like really close to each other, like they're like within 4 keys. So when you switch to Dvorak keyboard layout and you try to type, you'll just get used to that really quickly. Oh yeah, so then how's the keyboard layout set up? So besides the vowels all being here, it also has the most common consonants on the home row. So your fingers are on the H, T, N, and S. And some might argue that R is more common than like say H. But actually having H here I think is correct. Mainly because of one main thing, right? And that's the word the, right? So like how often do you write the? Like you write the a lot, right? And by having the H on the home row and it's actually underneath your index finger, you can type the THE without moving any of your hands off the home row. And I actually think that's more common than say like something with an R, you know? So like if you can come up with something that's more common than the that uses an R, please let me know. But I think just having the H there is actually a really smart idea, and it's like an added bonus for this layout. And oh yeah, and the semicolon, right? Like remember, like when I was talking about the QWERTY keyboard before, like your pinky's on a semicolon. Like what's up with that, right? Like who uses this, right? Like essentially, so except for like maybe like except for like the rare occasion when you actually use this, for the most part you'll probably use like the apostrophe more often maybe, or like essentially anytime you use like your pinky, like it never just uses this key, right? Except for like rare occasions, like if you're doing like a winky face or something, like never use it. So the fact that they actually gave it like a legit letter, like yes, please, thank you, like that makes so much sense. Okay. So yeah, so those are like kind of like things that the Dvorak keyboard layout did that I think improves typing, like improves your typing speed way more than the QWERTY layout. Okay. So I mentioned that here, and so what is kind of like the idea of like how do you write, how do you type quickly, right? So there's like 2 things that kind of can improve your typing speed, right? One of them is your fingers just move less. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that they go off the home row less, if you think about it, right? So like if your keys are on the home row and you can just type words without moving your fingers off the home row, you can type really quickly because you don't because they don't need to move. Essentially, you just push down, and it's really quick. So for instance, as I mentioned before, like the word the, right? The comes around so often, you can type it without moving any of your fingers, right? But if I go back to QWERTY, right, and I want to type the, first of all, T is here. H, like your index finger starts on J, so your finger has to move over one anyway. And E is off the home row, so your middle finger has to move. So essentially, to type the word the in the QWERTY layout, every finger has to move. As opposed to Dvorak layout, where none of the fingers have to move. already, like, if you just think about it, even though like it might be like, oh yeah, I got so used to typing it in the QWERTY that like the time difference is only like a fraction of a second. Fractions of seconds add up, right? That's the whole point. Like, obviously at some point, like, you want to get as much speed as you can, which means that you need, like, you're aiming for all those like little fractions of seconds that add up to a lot. Okay. So already, like, the is like my favorite example, where like in QWERTY every finger needs to move to type the, but in QWERTY it doesn't. Or I mean, sorry, in QWERTY every finger moves, but in Dvorak it doesn't, which makes like so much sense, right? So that's one thing to improve your typing speed, is your fingers move less, which is what Dvorak tried to do by having all the common letters on the home row. Makes sense, right? And the second thing is to increase speed. I don't know if I mentioned it on here. Oh no, I did. But the second thing to improve speed is to alternate hands. All right. So if I type a letter with my left hand, or sorry, well, let's say with my right hand, I want to type something with my left hand right afterwards, and then my right hand, then my left hand, then right hand, and back and forth. If I have a word that does that a lot, I type a lot faster. Why? It's just because as my right hand is moving, it only needs to think about like one thing. It types the key. And then my left hand needs to do one thing. And even as my right hand is typing, my left hand can actually move into position. So by the time my right hand is done, my left hand can like move right away. And then as my left hand is doing it, I can do the same with my right hand, like it moves in position, whatever. And you just alternate. And since it's one thing at a time as well, you do it really quickly. Because like your brain's like pretty good at doing things one thing at a time. And plus, if it's alternating a lot, it's like your brain can do that really well. Interestingly enough, if you try to type a lot like with one hand, right, it actually messes you up. Because what happens is that as you're typing with like say like your right, if you're typing a word and it's all your right hand, one is that your hand can like mess up timings, right? Because like if I'm typing like with my index finger and my next one's my ring finger, and I try to like type them one after the other, my ring finger like might accidentally type, oh, okay, maybe it's the other way around, sorry. Say if my ring finger types the letter and I have to use my index finger, sorry. But like, so as my ring finger is trying to type a letter, my index finger types the next letter. My index finger is faster though, right? Because I use it more often. I might actually type the index finger one first instead of the ring finger one, right? And so already I made a mistake just because like I switched the letters around, say. So like you can get timing issues, for instance, and then also your brain can get really confused just because it's always like right, and like, so say if I have to use like my middle finger like twice, say, you know, like you type really slow because like one, you have to finish typing with your middle finger and then you have to use your middle finger again, right? Say like, and if you need to move it somewhere, as opposed to say if you were alternating, you would type with your right with your index finger, but then like my left finger for the next letter can move to like the next letter and start typing, you know. So typing with the same hand, the more often that happens, the worse it is. And then the more you get off the home row, the worse it is too. So vice versa. Sorry, I should probably say it the other way. But so the more, like, so the less your fingers move, aka the more it's on the home row. So the faster you type. Also, the more alternating there is. Sorry, the faster you type. Okay, so that's kind of like the two things to think about when it comes to typing. Okay. Oh, so one, by having all the vowels here, it also maximizes hand alternation, right? Because in the most cases, pretty much like every other letter typically is a vowel, or like every third letter, or or every third letter is a vowel, right? So that improves hand alternation, because you'll just be typing a consonant and then you like type with your left hand, right, a vowel, and then right hand, left hand, or right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, so on, right? So because all the vowels are with your left hand, you would be alternating between your right hand and left hand more often, and so hand alternation is increased, aka typing speed is increased. Makes sense? Yep. Yeah. So these are all things I mentioned. I'm probably taking longer to talk about them than it is to read them, but whatever. So pros and cons of learning Dvorak, right? Is pros is that you're able to type faster for all those reasons already mentioned. There's also less strain when typing, right? So like carpal tunnel happens like when you like it's due to repetitive motion a lot. Well, also it's like due to like a lot of strain, right? So because the reason there's less strain when typing with Dvorak is because your fingers move less, right? Like I already mentioned that. So by moving less, there's just less strain, and that's just the way it is. So it makes sense. You're also forced not to look at the keyboard. If you say have like a QWERTY layout keyboard, and you're typing Dvorak on it, you can't look at the keyboard because that just messes you up. Except for like except for like the numbers and the symbols, right? All the letters are all messed up, except for A and M, right? Like maybe those ones you can look at the keyboard and type those ones just fine, and maybe that'll help you out. But all the other ones mess you up, right? So you actually are forced not to look at the keyboard, and you look at the screen just because looking at the keyboard would mess you up. And actually, that's kind of the main reason why I actually decided to learn Dvorak, just because I was such a bad typer in like high school, and I would like hunt and peck all the time. That I was like, okay, you know what? I think like touch typing would be like a really important skill to learn, and that's why I picked up Dvorak. Obviously, everyone thought I was like really weird to do it, but I was so used to looking at the keyboard, right? But now when I was forcing myself to learn Dvorak, like I'll look at the keyboard, I'll be like, oh my god, I'm writing gibberish, like this is terrible, and so like then I was able to kind of like wean away from looking at the keyboard. So now even though I can type into QWERTY as well, but because now my habit is not to look at the keyboard, it's like I no longer have that issue. But I still like Dvorak better, just because I kind of forced myself to learn it through high school and all that stuff. So, and then last pro, there's obviously other pros, but the ones that I could think about is that no one is able to type on your keyboard just because all the letters are rearranged. So it's like free password protection. So for instance, like if you're like worried about people, like knowing your password or whatever for your computer or something, like if your computer is set up in the Dvorak keyboard layout, even if they know your password, like unless it's a bunch of numbers or something, like they wouldn't be able to type it correctly, just because like they'll look at your keyboard and type it on the keyboard and it's not right. It's kind of like a free bonus. I thought that was kind of cool. Some cons though is that if you get really good at Dvorak, which is like for instance which happened to me, I found that like because I focused on Dvorak so much, I just like completely forgot about QWERTY. And when that happened though, is that I struggled when typing on other people's computers, right? Because like when I go to somebody else's computer, oh well, now they're using QWERTY, but I'm so used to typing in Dvorak, so like I became like, so when I was typing on a QWERTY layout, on a QWERTY keyboard layout, aka all other computers essentially, I would have to look at the keyboard and type, right? And so it was always like really slow, and it was always like really frustrating to use like other people's computers, and I always just used my own. So the biggest problem that I had with this was actually when there was a computerized test that I had to take. It's known as GRE. So people who aren't in a like college or anything probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But the GRE is like this test that you take on the computer, right? And you actually have to like type up an essay and everything. And but because I learned, or like I know the Dvorak keyboard really well, but the computerized test was all in QWERTY, I did really bad on that test, right? Because I couldn't type as much as I wanted to. But then so like actually I went through the typing stuff that I mentioned before, like with the KeyBR, to kind of force myself to learn QWERTY as best as I could, so that way that wouldn't be an issue when I retook the test, right? And even though I retook the test, I got like the same scores, so like it turns out like it didn't really help too much, but like score wise, but like now I can kind of type on a QWERTY keyboard kind of okay. I averaged 54 as you see before, apparently. I mean, I'm just using this, but so like it's not as fast as QWERTY, but now I can type on QWERTY okay, or not as fast as Dvorak. You know what I mean. But yeah, like when I took the test, I at least was able to write more. But yeah, so I found that to be like a huge issue. So if you think that you'll be like running into that issue, just keep that in mind. Like I still recommend learning Dvorak, but like you might want to try to like maybe like brush up on your QWERTY before an exam or something. Also, games that map the keyboard for WASD movements don't work anymore, right? Because if you think about it, like WASD has moved around in the new keyboard layout. So this isn't too big of an issue, right? I mean, obviously you can try to remap it if it's like a normal computer game, but if it's like a flash game or something where they have to use WASD, you can always when you set up Dvorak, you can also set up they can switch to QWERTY when you need to. And when it comes to like playing games, that would be like a case when you can just go ahead and switch back to QWERTY and then just play the game, and then when you go back to typing or whatever, you just switch back to Dvorak, right? So it's not too big of an issue, it's just something to consider. You have to relearn your keyboard shortcuts though. So Control C and Control V, right? They're no longer next to each other. They're going to be different, I guess, like finger presses or whatever. But not too big of a deal, because hopefully, like when you learn it, you'll learn like where C and V are. So you can just be like Control C and you just type C, and you just Control V, just type V. Not too big of an issue, right? Just something to think about, of course. But I didn't think that was too big of a problem. Like that, I might have struggled with that for like a week, and then I was like, no problem after that. Oh yeah, these are the last two are just some fun cons. It was like one of them we have to like constantly explain to other people, right? What Dvorak is when they try to type on your keyboard, and they're like, dude, your keyboard like types really weird, and you're like, oh well, it's Dvorak, you know, it's this keyboard layout. Technically, the keyboard layout you use is really slow, and I'm better, so whatever, you know. But anyway, you know, so you have to explain that a lot. It can get kind of tedious after a while. Which is why I wrote this post, hey, and this video. So hopefully I can just redirect them to these things and just be like, now you should probably switch and like leave me alone or whatever. And yeah, of course, people like even after you explain Dvorak, they might be like, dude, like why would you do that? That's so weird, whatever. And you're like, if only you knew how slow you were typing. Tisk tisk tisk. But anyway. So Yep. So those were some pros and cons for Dvorak. So hopefully I convinced you that you should at least give Dvorak a shot. At least I actually recommend. I highly recommend actually just learning it and using it forever, of course. But then of course like and then always have like that backup with QWERTY for whenever you need it. But yeah, at least I hopefully convinced you to give it a shot. So did I mention this here? It's just that like since QWERTY is so universal, that's kind of the one reason why I would recommend typing, like still learning QWERTY. But other than that, like there are so many other pros with Dvorak that I still picked Dvorak after all. So let's actually go ahead and set up Dvorak on your computer, right? So what you gotta do? So I'm doing this on Windows 7. Of course, you can always just Google like how to set up Dvorak, right? I mean, come on. But for Windows 7, that's what I'm going to be showing here. And if you guys have Windows 7, just follow along. Otherwise, just Google it, right? It's not too bad. If you have any issues, you can always let me know. But I can just like Google it for you and redirect you to the link. But hopefully, you're smart enough to do that yourself. So, okay, so Windows 7, what you got to do is that you're going to go to Control Panel. Okay. And you're going to want to click on, if you're in category view, right, you're going to click on change keyboards or other input methods. And you're going to be brought to this window. Okay. If you are in icon mode, you're going to want to go to regions and language. And then you'll click on regions and language, and you'll be brought up to this. And then you click on keyboards and languages. Okay, you'll get to the same place no matter how you do it. I usually use categories, so I usually just click this right away, and boom, I'm here. Once you're here, you want to click on Change Keyboards. All right. Be brought to this screen. It'll probably look like a lot emptier than this. It'll probably just have like keyboard.us or something under English, and this will probably be set to like English US. Okay. And what you want to do is that you want to click on Add. So here I'll just pretend that like if this thing wasn't here, so let me just change my default here. I'll just show you guys what it'll look like. So for instance, if I remove this, it'll just look like this under English, right? You're gonna click on Add. You're gonna go ahead and scroll on down to English United States keyboard, and you're going to click on US United States dash Dvorak, right? Apparently there's a special one for like left-handed or right-handed, so this is like for I guess amputees and like those kind of people. But for the most part, most people would probably just use Dvorak. But actually, if you happen to be like an amputee and you can only use one hand, like you should look up actually Dvorak for left-handed or right-handed. And like this guy actually did research on like what would be like the keyboard layout if you can only use so and so, right? It's actually really cool. So anyway, just go ahead and click on United States / Dvorak. Click OK. All right, and then it'll add it here, right? Probably will add it like here, but so this is just like that. You already have Dvorak set up on your computer, right? So you just click apply. But then what you want to do is that, so how do you switch to it, right? You want to click on language bar first, and I recommend clicking on docked in the taskbar, because you say floating on desktop. See, if I click on that, I click apply, you're gonna have like this little thing flying around, right? And you can try moving it and stuff, but I find that it's like it just gets in the way. Like it's not even that pretty anyway. So I just say docked in the taskbar. So what happens is that when it's docked, it's gonna be down here. So if I look at my taskbar, it's gonna be this thing. This is the language bar right here. Okay. The EN might not show up if you don't have, like, if you only have English installed. So this is like allows me to switch between languages, but the keyboard lets me switch between keyboard layouts. Okay. And then I only have clicked a show text label in the language bar, so that way I have this EN, I think. I'm actually not sure what this is. Hold on, let me see what this is. I don't know. But it hasn't given me any issues, so check it if you want. I don't know. Anyway, and then you want to click on advanced key settings. And then what you want to do is you want to click on change key sequence, okay? And oh, sorry. Well, yeah, you want to highlight between input languages first, and then click change key sequence. Sorry, there we go. So switch between input language means that you would want to switch between languages. So in like my case, it would be like between English and Chinese. I don't actually use Chinese that often anyway, though. So like I can just manually just go to my language bar and then change it myself, just because that's how rarely I use it. But if you find that you, for some reason, switch very often, you can always set one. Unfortunately, you can't set it to anything besides those, which is kind of annoying. But in my case, I just set switch input languages to nothing. And then for the keyboard layout, you can set it to Control Shift, Left Alt and Shift, or grave accent, right? I think that grave accent is probably the best way to do it, because like let's be honest, how often do you use that thing? Probably never, right? Which is why I would recommend, like, if you are like most people, just go ahead and click grave accent. But, right, there's always an exception. And I find that maybe if you're a coder, you might use the grave accent sometimes. Like, there's like special cases when people actually do use the grave accent, and I'll give some examples. So, for instance, if you use LaTeX, or if you learn LaTeX, I use the grave accent sometimes for quotes. And also if you're a coder, though, like you also use the, like, say in MATLAB, or well, at least I know it for sure for MATLAB. I don't know about other languages, but say for MATLAB, if you want to say not equals or not something, you use the tilde, right? Which is technically uses the grave accent. And since I use both of these things, it's unfortunate for me, because it's like, dang it, like I want to use grave accent, but now I can't, because whenever I try to use it in MATLAB or something, it would just switch the keyboard layout rather than actually type it out, or like say tilde or the grave itself in LaTeX. So I set it to Left Alt and Shift, just because I find that to be less accidental to press than Control Shift, because Control Shift sometimes, like when I'm just pressing Shift by itself, I accidentally press Control or something, so like it messes me up, while Alt Shift is very unlikely. So grave accent, highly recommended for essentially everybody, but for some reason you find that you actually do use it sometimes. Left Alt and Shift is why I recommend for you, and then Control Shift, I don't recommend that for like anybody, just because it's so easy to accidentally press. I think Left Alt and Shift is way better. Okay, so just click OK, click Apply, and then click OK. I find this one to be the most consistent. For some reason, I can try to, this is like to change it to like the specific layout. And I tried to set these before, but for some reason, like if I restart my computer or something, these like those shortcuts would get like reset sometimes, and I didn't want to deal with that too often. So, but I find that using between the input languages and changing the keyboard layout, that thing works all the time. So no worries. Yeah. So then you just click OK, apply, OK, OK. Right. So now, if I want to switch to the Dvorak keyboard layout, all I do is I just click, in my case, either grave accent or, either you press grave accent or, in my case, left alt and shift. There we go. And it gets switched to the Dvorak keyboard layout. And if you want to check it, you can always just go down to your taskbar and just, whoops, here, come on, here we go. And just put your mouse over the keyboard and you can see it. And if you want to manually change it, of course, you could always click on it and just click it. But I actually like having keyboard shortcuts, so there you go. And then once you switch to it, when you type, you'll see that you're typing in Dvorak, okay? So then how do you actually learn to type quickly in Dvorak, though, right? Well, I kind of already showed you how to do it, which is just that you go to keybr.com, right? You want to click on Settings, right? You're going to click on Keyboard Layout. So when you click on Settings, you'll see this. You're going to click on Keyboard Layout. And you want to click on US-Dvorak, right? And click Done. And what happens is that now when I look at it, you'll see that like this, the layout down here is in Dvorak keyboard layout. And you'll probably start at the beginning or whatever, but then just start typing, right? And just start practicing. And then like they'll give you the most common letters before, so ideally I think they should not be off the home row anyway. And then as they add more and more letters, you'll just learn it. And then, yeah. So this thing down here is technically here just so that, like, when you're typing and if you forget or something, you can just, like, look down here and be like, oh, that's where it is. I don't actually like doing that very much because it's sort of like looking at your keyboard but not or something, you know? So I try my best not to look down here, but sometimes, like, when you're learning, actually, this could be helpful. So, especially if your keyboard layout is not in Dvorak anyway, right? Like, you probably need to refer to this, like, all the time. But, yeah, you know, so now that it's set up, I can just, oops. So, you know, and just type whatever you want. So, oops, jeez. You know, so, and then all my statistics are being saved and all that good stuff. So, there you go, you know. So, use this to so just like where before I was talking about how to improve your typing speed, and technically that's like for QWERTY, you can also do it for Dvorak too. Just use keybr, which is really useful, right? So say you've been typing on Dvorak for a while, but now you want to make the complete switch, right? So like if you get really good at Dvorak, say if you were like me and you liked it so much that you're like, let's just use Dvorak all the time, right? Like instead of having to constantly switch to it all the time, you can just set it as the default. So how do you do that, right? Well, what you want to do is, again, you're going to go ahead and go back to your control panel, and you're going to click on Change Keyboards or Input Methods. Click on Change Keyboards, and you get brought to this screen. So what you want to do, one, is that you're going to move this guy up. Okay, so he's above US. You're also going to change the default input language to United States. Geez, what am I saying? To United States / Dvorak, right? And then you're just going to click Apply. So now, when you first do this, like all your things are going to be in US at the beginning. But if you restart your computer, then everything will be in Dvorak, right? That just has to do with like once you set this, even though you set this, it only applies to windows that have been opened from that point on, right? So because you like might have opened up a whole bunch of windows and you had US on default originally, once you switch to your default being a Dvorak, all those original ones are still going to be US, but all the new ones are going to be Dvorak, right? So default input method just means when you open a window, what's the default keyboard layout that this thing will be set to. So I can see like it's US, and I just switched back to Dvorak, and boom, that's it. So this even applies on your login screen too, by the way. So, yeah. You can just click OK, and there you go. That's it. So now Dvorak is essentially taking over your computer, right? Or at least your keyboard, officially for your entire computer. And yeah, so that's how you switch to Dvorak. Hopefully you'll see that your on Dvorak, you'll be typing a lot faster and with a lot less strain. Like, I actually noticed this a lot, like when I was learning the QWERTY again. I found that when I was typing in Dvorak, and if I tried to type like the same stuff in QWERTY, I just had so much more strain typing in QWERTY than I did in Dvorak. Right? So, like, again, which is why I like Dvorak so much, and so much less strain. It just makes typing so much easier, and it's like a huge breeze compared to QWERTY. Again, though, like, I know that QWERTY is useful just because it's used everywhere, so that's kind of why the only reason I would still learn it. And that's kind of what I mentioned too, which is like, if you want to get really crazy, right? If you want to go all out, you might want to try learning Dvorak and QWERTY really well, right? Like both of them, like whole snaps, right? And I'd probably recommend using KeyBR, obviously, and then you just switch between the two in settings, and then you just go ahead and type as like the best you can, and try to get those up so you're like super pro at both keyboard layouts. If you did that, I think you'd be amazing, like anywhere. Just because like if you need to use their computer, you just type on QWERTY, but on your own computer, you type on Dvorak, and you'd probably type way faster anyway, and be like, boom. And then, like, while that's easy to say, of course, that's gonna be like really hard to actually do, right? Why is that so hard? Like, I tried it. Holy cow, it's hard. I mean, I'm still giving it a shot, but like, it's so difficult. Just because, like, besides A and M, all the keys are different, right? So, like, say if I'm like in QWERTY, right, and I'm typing on QWERTY, I switch to Dvorak, where I think L is, right? Like, like, your brain gets really confused, mainly because it has two options now, right? Like, when you want to type L, you don't know, like, am I in the QWERTY one or am I in the Dvorak one? Like, all I know is that, like, one of these buttons is L, and, like, if you try one and you're wrong, oh, well, now I know it's the other one. But you lose a lot of time, and typing speed goes down just because you have, like, this ambiguity going on, which is, like, really frustrating. But what you'll find happen though is that like you'll struggle when you transition, but like essentially like it'll just click, right? Like say I'm typing in QWERTY for a while, my brain has quote unquote like clicked on QWERTY, so I'll actually type on QWERTY just fine. But say if I wanted to switch to Dvorak, I'm going to struggle a little bit, right? Just because I've been typing on QWERTY for a while, and I'm trying to like switch back to Dvorak. But then after a while, I'll just click again, and I'll be like, oh, like now for some reason, like the Dvorak has clicked in for me, and then I can type on QWERTY just fine as I did before, you know. But then, and then so every time I switch, there's like a slight transition period. But then now I actually find that I type okay. So anyway, that's been my experience on trying to learn both of them at the same time. But again, I recommend just learn Dvorak by itself. But if you want to learn QWERTY by yourself, go ahead. Either way, you're going to use KeyBR. Or I would recommend using keybr.com. So yeah, I think that's it. That's all I have to talk about for the improving your typing speed and the Dvorak keyboard layout. I think if I look at it, I think I actually wrote a lot more about Dvorak and talked about that more than the keyboard layout, or than improving your typing speed. But anyway, I just put them both in this video. Put them all in both in this post. Hopefully, if you like my stuff, you can always just go to keto343.wordpress.com for more of my posts. And I'm gonna try to see if I can post more stuff in the future and finish making the videos for the stuff I've been posting. So, in case you don't know, I've been trying to write posts and then do videos on them. But right now I'm just going through my video backlog. So I wrote a whole bunch of posts. So I'm gonna first finish making videos for all those posts first, and then I'll be switching to like doing writing a post and then making a video for that post, writing another post, making another video, and so on. So yeah. So anyway, I hope you like this post. I hope you decide to pick up Dvorak. But if you don't, I just wish you well on your quest to improving your typing speed. And this has been Keto343, and I'll see you later.